A marathon hearing got heated as Republicans tore into FBI Director Christopher Wray. They accused the Bureau of protecting the Biden family and being weaponized for political purposes. Here's a taste.
The American people fully understand that there is a two-tier justice system that has been weaponized to persecute people based on their political beliefs, and that you have personally worked to weaponize the FBI against conservatives.
Well, first off, I would disagree with your characterization of the FBI and certainly your description of my own approach. The idea that I'm biased against conservatives seems somewhat insane to me, given my own personal background.
Did Joe Biden take payments from Burisma or any other foreign companies as vice president, president, or private citizen Biden?
As you may know, there is an ongoing investigation being led by the U.S. Attorney in Delaware, Mr. Weiss, can be shared.
So the president is under, investigation.
I'm not going to confirm or speak to who is or isn't under investigation for what. I'm simply going to tell you.
So he's not under investigation?
I didn't say that either.
The American people have lost faith in the FBI. They've seen evidence that it's being used as a political tool of the Biden administration. They've seen counterterrorism resources being used against school parents, the homes of conservative political opponents being raided. See, the American people that we represent are losing count of the scandals that are mounting.
The New York Post's Miranda Devine calls Christopher Wray's testimony a masterclass in stonewalling congressional oversight. The FBI with lengthy statements that suddenly started coming out as soon as the hearing wrapped up. The FBI denying it's in the business of policing social media, targeting parents at school board meetings, retaliating against whistleblowers. Well, they had a lot to deny there, didn't they? Congressman Chip Roy, Republican of Texas and Judiciary Committee member, you also questioned Director Wray at yesterday's hearing. Do you agree with Miranda Devine? I mean, was this guy evasive?
Yeah, Harris, great to be on as always. Good morning. And look, as someone who worked in the United States Attorney's Office, was the first Assistant Attorney General of Texas, I just want to make sure the people out there who are doing the line work and the FBI know that we stand behind you guys who are doing the hard work to defend this country. But I'm tired of people like Director Wray and the Attorney General of the United States hiding behind the line FBI agents when we're trying to criticize the so-called leadership of the FBI and the DOJ when we're seeing precisely what is happening. You saw the questions yesterday. You saw my friend Matt Gaetz from Florida, who asked the questions about Hunter Biden, sitting there talking about sitting next to his dad, basically carrying out a shakedown. And the FBI director couldn't talk about it. He couldn't answer questions about big tech. He wouldn't answer questions to me about a FBI participation in a raid on the home of a dad in Philadelphia because he was defending his son for an event that had occurred a year earlier for which he had offered to voluntarily submit himself, and yet they show up with guns at his house. And you know what Director Wray was offended by? That I referred to that being tyrannical. Oh, I'm sorry, Director Wray. Did I offend your sensibilities, sir? But I can tell you it's the American people who are offended. It's the American people who are sick and tired of it. But they also want to see more than just words from Republicans. And I think we need to use the power of the purse, and we need to use our powers in Congress to try to get the reforms necessary at FBI and DOJ.
And I think my team just popped up some family photos with the dad that you were talking about. So we had some support materials there just to jog everybody's memory of how that played out. It got chippy on both sides of the aisle, though. I mean, even House Democrat Pramila Jayapal had some tough questions for the FBI director, raising serious concerns, Congressman, about Americans' right to privacy when it comes to the FBI's data collection. Let's watch a bit.
It is public information that the FBI uses Babel Street and Ventel and has a Lexus account. All of these companies provide data for purchase. Can you tell me how the FBI uses that data?
Respectfully, this is a topic that gets very involved to explain.
But does the FBI purchase data?
My testimony about purchasing commercial database information that includes location data derived from internet advertising remains the same, which is that we currently do not do that.
I mean, that was a serious pat on the head. He basically told that woman, let me mansplain to you. It's too complicated for you to understand it.
Well, Harris, that's exactly right. And look, this is one of those very small and discrete areas where I think there's some common interest with my colleagues on the other side of the aisle in protecting the privacy of the American people. And what we're seeing out of this FBI, what we're seeing out of this administration, is a blatant abuse of the privacy of the American people. We saw a federal court, a district court in Louisiana. My friend, Mr. Johnson from Louisiana, questioned the FBI director on this yesterday about this district court ruling saying there were at least 278,000 incidents of using FISA improperly to go get information on the American people, and that was abusive. That's a problem. And you look, I asked questions about Brian Auten, the FBI analyst who was associated with going after President Trump and providing false information to a FISA court, was being investigated, and yet under this director's watch in this FBI, he was then allowed to participate in essentially dismissing the investigation into Hunter Biden and to Joe Biden. Imagine that. And I asked the director about that, and he wanted to say, oh, that wasn't on my watch. Well, you know what? The second part was on your watch. You have a responsibility to clean up the FBI. The American people expect us to protect their privacy, to not use FISA to abuse their privacy as American citizens. And we have a bipartisan interest on Capitol Hill in ensuring we do something about it. And I hope, again, to my Republican and Democrat colleagues, we will use the power of the purse during the appropriation season to force changes at the FBI and the Department of Justice.
That's interesting. Yeah, I mean, you pull back some of that cash, and perhaps there'll be a capitulation. But as you can see, following even the John Durham report, not a lot of change at the FBI. We'll see if some actual coin can change that. I want to go now to the breaking news that we just heard from Mark Meredith, reporting on the Secret Service confirming that its investigation into who took cocaine into the White House is now closed. They say their sweep, and this is a quote, did not develop latent fingerprints. There was no surveillance video footage found that provided investigative leads. The Secret Service's investigation is closed due to a lack of physical evidence, except for the actual cocaine. Congressman, really no answers for the American people. And my question earlier with Mark, my sort of point of view of it all is, what if it had been something else that could have been more deadly or dangerous to a wider group of people, like anthrax? It could have been anything that somebody left behind.
Remember, that was part of sort of locking down the White House, right? It was like, we got to make sure this isn't anthrax. Well, what if it had been anthrax? I guess the Secret Service would have just said, oh, sorry, I don't know who had anthrax in the White House. The most secure location on the planet? Are you out of your mind? I mean, the fact is now, apparently, our law enforcement officials, Secret Service, FBI, whoever's involved, can go back to going after Scott Smith in Loudoun County for defending his daughter in front of a school board, or going after Mark Houck for defending his son in Philadelphia, because they want to politicize our system of justice, rather than actually doing their job. You better damn well believe that if they wanted to go figure out where that cocaine came from, the Secret Service of the United States in the White House of the United States could figure it out. We know what's going on here, and this is more of the, clear two-tier system that we're seeing going on.
Is that the only thing that potentially could be going on is a fair question. I mean, look, after everything that the president's son has been through, no clear connection, no clear anything, but would there be a more vigorous look at where it came from? Your last quick thought.
Well, all I know is when I look at what the deal they're trying to cut with Hunter Biden, it's a deal they never would have cut with any average American. As someone that I know, as I prosecuted gun crimes in Texas, there's no way they would have let an average American get away with what they're letting Hunter Biden get away with. Now we're seeing what's happening in the White House. We've got some work to do, and we should use the power of the purse to do it. Congressman
Chip Roy of the great state of Texas. Always good to have you. Thank you.
Thanks, Harris. God bless.
Hey, everyone. I'm Emily Campagno. Catch me and my co-hosts Harris Faulkner and Kaylee McEnany on Outnumbered every weekday at 12 p.m. Eastern, or set your DVR. Also, don't forget to subscribe to the Fox News YouTube page for daily highlights.